Ready to explore another fascinating chapter from America's past? Let's dig into the humble yet vital story of root cellar turnips and rutabagas, vegetables that helped families survive long, harsh winters thanks to an ingenious preservation method. Before modern refrigeration, preserving fresh produce through winter was a serious challenge. Enter the root cellar, a cool, dark underground storage space that kept food fresh for months. But simply storing turnips and rutabagas wasn't enough. They needed protection from moisture and rot. That's where the sand-packed method came in. Families carefully harvested these hardy root vegetables in late fall. Then, instead of piling them loosely, they nestled each turnip and rutabaga snugly in layers of dry sand inside the root cellar. This natural insulation absorbed excess moisture and kept the vegetables from touching each other, preventing bruising and decay. Thanks to this simple but effective technique, turnips and rutabagas could last all winter long, sometimes well into early spring, providing a reliable source of nutrition when fresh greens were out of season. These vegetables were packed with vitamins and hearty flavor, perfect for stews, soups, and roasts that warmed cold winter days. Root cellar turnips and rutabagas tell a story of resilience and resourcefulness. In times when food scarcity was real and refrigeration a luxury, families relied on such traditional preservation to stretch their harvests and survive the months of cold. This method also fostered a deep connection to the land and the seasons, reminding us how food preservation was not just about survival, but about respect for nature's gifts and careful planning. Today, while we take fresh produce for granted year-round, the tradition of sand-packed root vegetables inspires gardeners and food historians alike to appreciate old-world wisdom. It's a testament to human ingenuity and the timeless bond between people and the food they grow. So, next time you enjoy a hearty winter stew flavored with turnips or rutabagas, remember the clever root cellar and the sand-packed secrets that kept these humble vegetables fresh through the coldest months. Get ready to uncover a remarkable food preservation method from America's past: mason jar eggs preserved through water glassing. This clever technique allowed families to keep eggs fresh for over a year, long before refrigerators were common in every home. In rural America, especially during the 19th and early 20th centuries, fresh eggs were a valuable and essential food source. But during the colder months, when hens laid fewer eggs, families needed a way to store their surplus eggs collected during the spring and summer. Enter the ingenious practice called water glassing. Water glassing involves submerging clean, fresh eggs in a solution made from lime water, a mixture of water and pickling lime, calcium hydroxide. This alkaline liquid created a protective barrier around the eggshell, sealing its tiny pores and preventing bacteria and air from penetrating the shell. The result? Eggs that stayed remarkably fresh for up to a year or even longer. Families used large mason jars to store these eggs. After carefully washing and inspecting the eggs, they were gently placed upright in the jars, which were then filled with a lime water solution. The jars were sealed and stored in cool, dark places such as root cellars or pantries. The water glassing method was more than just preservation. It was a survival strategy. In times when food shortages were common and refrigeration was scarce, having access to fresh eggs year-round was a luxury and a necessity. These preserved eggs could be used in baking, cooking, or simply boiled for a quick, nutritious snack. What makes this method fascinating is how it combines simple chemistry with practicality. The lime water's alkaline nature prevented spoilage naturally, without chemicals or artificial preservatives. It was a way to harness nature's resources smartly and sustainably. Today, while most people rely on modern refrigeration, some homesteaders and food preservation enthusiasts are rediscovering water glassing for its simplicity and effectiveness. It serves as a reminder of how resourceful our ancestors were and how traditional methods can still inspire us. So, the next time you crack open a fresh egg, think about the clever mason jar method that kept eggs fresh through long winters, connecting us to a rich legacy of preservation and ingenuity. Ready to dive into a true marvel of food history? Let's explore the story behind Campbell's soup in metal cans. a World War II-era innovation so durable that cans from that time are reportedly still edible today. During World War II, food preservation and portability became critical for feeding troops overseas. Campbell's Soup, already a household name by then, adapted its packaging to meet these demands by using metal cans that were sturdy, lightweight, and airtight. This revolutionary packaging change helped ensure that soldiers received nutritious meals no matter where they were deployed. The metal cans protected the soup from spoilage, contamination, and physical damage, dramatically extending shelf life. Unlike glass jars or other containers that were fragile or bulky, metal cans could withstand rough handling, temperature fluctuations, and long storage periods without compromising the food inside. Remarkably, cans produced during World War II have been found decades later, sometimes 70 or more years old, and some experts say the soup inside remains safe to eat, although the taste and texture might have changed. This longevity is a testament to the advanced canning technology and meticulous sealing methods used back then. Campbell's Soup in metal cans didn't just feed soldiers. It also symbolized American ingenuity and resilience during challenging times. On the home front, these canned soups became convenient staples, helping families save time and reduce food waste. The innovation of metal canned soup changed the food industry forever. It paved the way for the modern convenience foods we often take for granted today, meals that are quick, reliable, and portable. Beyond nutrition, Campbell's cans became cultural icons, instantly recognizable for their bright labels and comforting flavors. Today, while we enjoy a vast variety of canned foods, the legacy of Campbell's World War II metal cans reminds us how necessity spurred innovation in food preservation. It's a story of science, practicality, and a nation's effort to nourish both its troops and citizens during wartime. So, next time you open a can of soup, remember the incredible history sealed inside, one that has stood the test of time and still nourishes generations. Ready for the next tasty tale? Let's uncover the history and magic behind desiccated coconut stored in metal tins, a pantry staple that kept the tropical flavor fresh and handy for years. Desiccated coconut is simply shredded coconut meat that's been dried to remove moisture, making it light, shelf-stable, and perfect for baking, cooking, or garnishing desserts. But in the days before airtight plastic packaging, keeping desiccated coconut fresh and free from moisture and pests was a real challenge. Enter the trusty metal tin, a container that was sturdy, reusable, and sealed tight to protect its precious contents. These tins became the go-to storage for desiccated coconut, especially throughout the early to mid-20th century when packaged tropical ingredients began appearing in American kitchens more frequently. By packing the dried coconut in metal tins, companies ensured that moisture, air, and insects could not spoil this delicate ingredient. This preservation method helped coconut maintain its natural sweetness, texture, and aroma for months or even years. Desiccated coconut's popularity grew as American baking and cooking traditions embraced tropical flavors. From classic cakes and cookies to festive confections and savory dishes, this ingredient added a unique twist and a burst of flavor. The metal tins themselves often featured bright, colorful labels that made them stand out on grocery shelves, making them a familiar and welcome sight in many households. They weren't just packaging, they were a symbol of quality and freshness. Today, while plastic and vacuum-sealed bags have mostly replaced metal tins, vintage tins remain collectible items cherished by kitchen historians and coconut lovers alike. The story of desiccated coconut in metal tins highlights how thoughtful packaging helped bring global flavors into everyday American homes. So, the next time you sprinkle shredded coconut on your favorite treat, remember the metal tins that once kept this tropical delight fresh and ready to brighten countless recipes across the decades. Ready for a sweet journey through time? Let's dive into the fascinating world of crystallized honey, a natural marvel that's not just delicious, but practically immortal. Honey has been treasured by humans for thousands of years, not only for its rich flavor, but for its remarkable ability to last almost indefinitely. In fact, Archaeologists have discovered pots of honey in ancient Egyptian pyramids that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly edible. This incredible longevity is thanks to honey's natural composition, low moisture content, and acidic pH, which together create an environment where bacteria and microbes simply cannot survive. But here's an interesting twist. Over time, honey often crystallizes. This means it becomes thicker, grainy, and solidifies into beautiful crystals. While some people think crystallized honey is spoiled, it's actually a sign of pure, natural honey aging gracefully. Crystallization happens because honey contains natural sugars, glucose and fructose, that separate and form crystals when stored for a long time or kept at cooler temperatures. Crystallized honey isn't just edible. Many honey lovers prefer it because of its unique texture and concentrated sweetness. It can be gently warmed to return it to a liquid state without losing any of its natural goodness. Throughout history, honey was a precious commodity, used not just as food but for medicinal purposes, religious rituals, and even as an offering to gods. Its incredible shelf life made it invaluable before the invention of refrigeration. Today, crystallized honey reminds us of nature's perfect preservation system. Unlike many modern processed foods, honey is a living food that connects us to ancient traditions and a natural world. It's a testament to how something so simple and sweet can last through the ages, bridging millennia from ancient pyramids to your kitchen table. So next time you see your honey turn grainy or solid, embrace it. It's nature's timeless gift, sweetened with history. Ready to uncover another fascinating piece of food history? Let's dive into the story of canned deviled ham and potted meat, a protein-packed staple with an almost endless shelf life that kept families and soldiers nourished for decades. Long before modern refrigeration and frozen foods, preserving meat for long periods was a huge challenge. Enter canned deviled ham and potted meat, both ingenious solutions that allowed perishable meat to be stored safely without spoiling for years. Deviled ham is a spread made by finely grinding cooked ham and mixing it with spices and seasonings, then sealing it tightly in metal cans. Potted meat is similar, usually a mixture of various meats cooked and preserved in fat or jelly, then canned or jarred. Both provided a convenient, ready-to-eat source of protein that was especially important during times of war, economic hardship, or when fresh meat was scarce. Thanks to the airtight canning process, these products could last indefinitely without refrigeration. The heat sealing removed oxygen, preventing bacteria growth, while the fat and spices acted as natural preservatives. This made canned deviled ham and potted meat ideal for soldiers in the field, campers, or families preparing for lean times. In the early 20th century, these canned meats were a pantry essential across America. They were affordable, filling, and easy to store, giving peace of mind that nutritious protein was always available. Soldiers during world wars often relied on these cans as a dependable source of sustenance. Today, while fresh meat and refrigeration dominate our diets, canned deviled ham and potted meat remain nostalgic reminders of food preservation ingenuity. They symbolize survival, resourcefulness, and the evolution of convenience foods that pave the way for our modern meals. So next time you spot a can of deviled ham or potted meat, remember its incredible history. A protein powerhouse preserved through science and tradition, still ready to fuel adventures or emergencies.
Let's jump into the forgotten story of survival hidden in the most unlikely of places, your backyard. During the Great Depression, when families could barely afford basic groceries and store shelves ran empty, Americans turned to something most of us today would yank out and toss aside: dandelion greens. Yes, that little weed we often try to kill was once considered a lifeline. Poor families, especially in rural towns and Appalachian regions, foraged dandelion greens from fields, sidewalks, and backyards. These bitter leaves weren't a last resort, they were a smart choice. Rich in iron, calcium, and vitamins A and C, they helped replace nutrients missing from poor diets when meat, milk, and fresh vegetables were rare luxuries. But gathering them fresh was only half the battle. To stretch the supply through winter, families began home canning dandelion greens. After careful washing, The greens were boiled, packed tightly into jars, and preserved using hot water baths or pressure canning. Stored in dark pantries, these jars sat beside canned beans, fruit preserves, and molasses, humble proof of a family's will to survive another season. Home-canned dandelion greens became known as weed survival food. They weren't glamorous. In fact, many kids hated them. Bitter, earthy, and often cooked down into a mush, the flavor wasn't always pleasant. But for many families, that single jar on a cold January night meant a warm, nourishing meal. They'd often be stewed with a bit of salt pork, onions, or just a splash of vinegar, anything to make them more palatable. What makes this forgotten food powerful is what it represents: resourcefulness, grit, and respect for nature's unexpected gifts. People didn't see dandelions as weeds, they saw them as hope. And that lesson still holds true today. In a world where we waste more than we keep, remembering how our grandparents turned useless plants into life-saving nutrition is a reminder we could all use. So next time you walk past a patch of dandelions, take a second look, because what we once dismissed as weeds actually fed America through its darkest days. Imagine waking up in a muddy foxhole, freezing wind cutting through your coat, thousands of miles from home, and all you have to start the day is a tiny tin of brown powder. That little tin, it was gold. It was warmth. It was sanity. It was instant coffee, tucked into every soldier's ration kit during World War II. While coffee has long been a morning staple, during World War II it became more than just a drink. It became a morale booster, a comfort, and a piece of home. But how do you get fresh brewed coffee to millions of soldiers scattered across war zones from France to the Pacific? The answer: powdered instant coffee. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fresh roasted. But it worked. These powdered crystals came in tiny sealed packets or glass jars, designed to survive anything: heat, cold, moisture, even bomb blasts. Add hot water, stir, and within seconds, you had the taste of home, bitter, bold, and strangely calming. For many GIs, this quick, no-nonsense coffee was a small ritual that helped them feel human in inhuman conditions. The U.S. military relied heavily on companies like Nescafé and Maxwell House to produce tons of instant coffee for ration kits like the famous K-rations and C-rations. Soldiers would mix it in tin cups over campfires or in mess kits on tanks, sometimes even cold when hot water wasn't available. It became such an essential part of a soldier's gear that veterans would later say, "I never liked coffee until the war." Back home, during rationing, families also turned to instant coffee as a way to stretch supplies. And guess what? Many of those wartime tins still exist today, and the coffee inside? Still technically drinkable. That's how long this powdered marvel lasts. Decades. So what made it so important? It wasn't just caffeine. It was psychological survival. A hot drink in hell. A bitter taste of comfort. And a way for soldiers to pause, if only for a moment, and feel something familiar. Today, instant coffee might seem like a lazy option, but back then, it was a lifeline in a cup. And if you ever find one of those old tins in your grandfather's attic, don't throw it away. You're holding a piece of liquid history. Imagine this. It's 1943. Sugar is rationed. Butter is scarce. But on the dinner table, a shimmering, wobbly dessert glows in the afternoon light. It's not a luxury, it's survival disguised as sweetness. Welcome to the fascinating story of powdered gelatin, the unsung hero of wartime kitchens across America. When World War II turned the world upside down, even desserts had to adapt. Housewives needed a way to create treats without wasting precious ingredients like eggs, milk, or flour. That's where powdered gelatin came in. It was shelf-stable, cheap, and endlessly flexible, a miracle in a packet. Powdered gelatin wasn't new, but during the war, it became a kitchen staple. Sold in small envelopes, it could be mixed with fruit juices, canned fruits, or even leftover coffee to create colorful, jiggly desserts that felt like indulgence, without breaking the ration book. And the best part? It stretched everything. One box could serve a whole family, even when the cupboards were almost bare. But gelatin wasn't just used for sweets. Clever homemakers used it to turn scraps of meat and vegetables into molded salads and aspics, an odd but nutritious dish that could be made ahead and stored for days. It was innovation born of necessity. A little flavoring, some veggies or protein, and gelatin could transform leftovers into something elegant-looking and new. Kids loved it. Soldiers overseas got boxes of it in care packages. Hospitals served it to the wounded. It was easy to digest, cheerful in color, and required no refrigeration once set. And here's a secret. Gelatin was often used to make other desserts go further. You could add a spoonful to custards, whips, and puddings to help them hold their shape longer. A plain fruit salad could be suspended in gelatin and suddenly feel like a special occasion. Even with limited ingredients, powdered gelatin gave wartime families a little sparkle and joy at the end of a hard day. Today, we take gelatin for granted. It's tucked inside gummy candies and boxed desserts on every grocery shelf. But back then, it was more than just Jell-O. It was a symbol of resourcefulness, creativity, and hope in a time when sweetness was in short supply. So the next time you see a jiggly dessert, know that behind that wobble is a story of survival. They were tiny, wrapped in foil, and looked unassuming on the pantry shelf. But drop one into boiling water, and it was like unlocking the flavor of a whole roast dinner. Welcome to the world of bouillon cubes, the humble, salty miracle that helped American families get through the toughest decades of the 20th century. During the Great Depression and World War II, meat was expensive and hard to come by. Fresh produce could be seasonal. But bouillon cubes, lightweight, compact, and virtually indestructible, were a flavor saver. Just one cube could turn a pot of hot water and leftover vegetables into something that tasted rich, hearty, and home-cooked. Each bouillon cube was a tiny flavor bomb, packed with dehydrated meat extract, salt, herbs, and spices. They came in foil-wrapped bricks, stacked neatly in cardboard boxes, and had an almost magical ability to last for years, sometimes decades, without spoiling. They didn't need refrigeration. They didn't crumble easily. And most importantly, they made bland meals comforting. Mothers used them to create broth for soups, stews, gravies, and even rice. In times when meat was simply unavailable, bouillon filled in the flavor gap, fooling taste buds into believing there was more substance in the pot than there really was. And let's not forget the military. Bouillon cubes were tucked into soldiers' ration kits throughout both world wars. Out in the trenches or the freezing forests of Europe, all it took was some hot water and a cube to feel just a little more like home. For many soldiers, sipping that hot broth meant more than calories. It meant comfort, warmth, and a taste of something familiar. But bouillon wasn't just a wartime fix. It became a pantry staple for generations. People relied on it during economic downturns, emergencies, and camping trips. Some even chewed it raw, salty, savory, intense, when they had no other choice. Even today, vintage bouillon cubes have been found in old kitchen cupboards and fallout shelters, still wrapped, still usable, still smelling like beef or chicken. That's shelf stability at its finest. So the next time you walk past that box of bouillon cubes in your kitchen cabinet, remember, those tiny cubes once flavored history. They were the unsung heroes of survival cooking, proof that even the smallest things can make a huge difference when times are tough.